Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from RealityArtPod, here to talk about week 5 of Big Brother 26. I'll recap all 3 episodes, giving my thoughts along the way. Last time on Big Brother, Angela's second HOH week took a turn when Quinn deepfaked her, creating Fraudula, Angela's evil twin who nominated and evicted Quinn's own ally Cedric. Way to go. Before I dive in, I put a link in the description to my playlist where you can watch my previous recaps and rankings. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a lot to me and helps me keep going. But let's dive into it with Sunday's episode. We pick back up where we left off. Cedric departs and the remainder of the Pentagon, Quinn, Brooklyn, Chelsea, and Cam are in a bad place. It's all Quinn's fault for leaking their alliance, and he cries in the diary room and apologizes to Cedric for his accidental betrayal. Brooklyn is pissed and tells us she looks like the big bad wolf to the other house guests. They flash back to the events before the vote where Brooklyn started campaigning for Cedric to stay, and T-Court and Chemo separate to come to a final decision. Brooklyn pulls Rubina aside to tell her she doesn't have the votes. Meanwhile, T-Court tells Chelsea that she can't bring herself to vote out Rubina. When Cedric is evicted, T-Court explains that it really was as simple as they just didn't want Rubina to leave because they like her more personally. Brooklyn tells Rubina that she was going home, and her pissed reaction when it didn't happen signals to Tucker that Brooklyn is snaking him, and that the short-lived 5 points alliance they were in together with T-Court, Chemo, and Rubina is not a real thing. T-Court and Chemo separate themselves. They're proud of themselves for deciding to make a hit at the Pentagon Alliance, and T-Court is loving playing fearlessly. Quinn was left out of the plans, and he comes to them for reassurance, which he doesn't really get, and Hurricane Brooklyn comes in and basically tells them as nice as she can that she's gonna get their asses for this.
I don't get mad, I just get even.
They want to see hell raised. Piss off a mother from Texas.
So they head to the wall endurance competition with a lot of bad blood, a split house. I was ready for this to go all night. Ainsley has created a firewall to protect the house from digital intruders, but of course, since she's a scatterbrained idiot who can't be trusted to do anything, the firewall is overheating, and the house guests have to hang on to who cares. So they get started with Chelsea, Cam, Brooklyn, and Quinn facing off against everyone else. Angela tells us that she's fighting for the Tanks Alliance. Remember the alliance that Angela begged to be in that I said was totally fake but ended up being totally real? I guess that makes me a skibbity flop, like this. Call me old-fashioned, call me a relic, but Sonny, I remember when these wall comps used to go all night on the feeds. But I'm onto this show. They know they can just tilt that wall forward until someone falls and edit it to make it seem like they went all night. They don't want to pay the interns. But let's talk about this quickie comp. Chemo flops on the deck, and the remaining players are blasted with green slime, which has always been a dream of mine. T-Court is me when I got COVID on my 30th birthday.
This virus is getting all up in my mouth.
Joseph throws, and then he flops, followed by Leah, Chelsea, and T-Court. They get blasted by some coolant, and I will say the team did a great job with the slime and the gack. Very excellent. And Quinn is going full Rick from Degrassi. I'm glad Terry is safe at her new school. Rubina drops, followed by Cam, and it's down to rivals Tucker and Quinn. Tucker offers Quinn safety if he drops, and Quinn makes the same offer in return, but doesn't agree. Quinn then drops soon after, and everyone slips and slides in the goop to celebrate Tucker winning HOH, which looks so fun, and I want a blue skidoo, so I can too. Back inside, happy couple Tubina celebrates.
Might do something a little crazy.
Karma is a bitch.
Quinn is dejected and upset. Quinn tells us he feels like he has people back home who don't believe in him and feels like they won because he lost. Brooklyn tells him he shouldn't feel bad because Tucker is a robot. Later, the Tank Alliance meet at HOH while Brooklyn angrily grinds Pepper in the kitchen. They summon Joseph and invite him to join the alliance, which they now call 6th Avenue. Terrible, terrible alliance name. Tucker tells Quinn that he's going on the block, but tells Quinn that he's a pawn, and he doesn't want him to go home because he's confident he could beat Quinn at anything. Tucker goes on to hold one-on-ones where Brooklyn deflects, lies, says she's always been honest. Chelsea claims she doesn't know who else voted to evict Rubina. Cam also lies in his own boring way. At the nomination ceremony, where Tucker has plenty of options, he nominates Quinn, Cam, and Brooklyn, stating that his target is Quinn, and that the other 2 are pawns to win the veto and get Quinn out, but in confessional, he calls Brooklyn the Queen Snake Medusa.
Brooklyn, I'm coming after you.
Moving on to Wednesday's episode, which picks right back up with Tucker bad-mouthing Brooklyn for being in the collective. Tucker tells Brooklyn and Cam that Quinn is his target in hopes to lull them into not trying hard to win the veto. Brooklyn says Tucker thinks she's Little Red Robin Hood, but she's really the wolf.
You think that I'm Little Red Robin Hood? No, I'm the wolf.
Tucker tells Quinn that he wants to keep him safe, but Quinn has to keep it a secret so that Tucker's plan can go smoothly. Chemo tells Tucker about the Pentagon Alliance and that Quinn told Chemo about it. Tucker, who must have went to the Flavor Flav school of snakes and rats, says Quinn can be a good snake, not a bad snake. Of course, Tucker is mostly annoyed that Brooklyn was involved, further fueling his fire against her. Quinn then goes to Brooklyn and tells Brooklyn that Tucker told him that he was a pawn, exactly what Tucker told Quinn not to say. Angela is a have-not, and Brooklyn and Mackenzie start making a charcuterie board with her HOH meats and cheeses, which really comically disturbs Angie. I love the way Angela says charcuterie.
And I got this amazing basket of charcuterie.
Balsamic vinegar?
This board looks positively divine, and Angela is absolutely beside herself and dissociating in the living room.
Oh, it just pisses me off.
I'm happy we got an Angela meltdown that didn't ruin her game so that she can stick around longer and feed us well. They pick players for the veto where Mackenzie gets drawn and Tucker gets houseguest choice, picking Joseph the Spiz to play in yet another veto comp. Chelsea isn't picked, which is very good for Tucker's plan. Brooklyn meets with Tucker and tells Tucker about her conversation with Quinn and accidentally embellishes, saying that Quinn told her she was the target, which isn't what he said, but successfully makes Quinn look really bad and also makes herself look really bad to Tucker in the process. They head to the veto comp, hide and go veto, one of my favorite veto comps that can be won by anyone and is always just fun to watch. They each have to hide their memory card that contains their questionable search history in the house. Then they'll take turns looking for each other's memory cards. Firstly, I need further explanation on the questionable search history. Like, what are they searching for that's so bad that they're hiding it on an external memory card? I feel uncomfortable. Also, this would be way more fun if the memory cards were smaller. They're gigantic. So the house guests hide their memory cards around the house and they get started looking for them. Joseph and his funny little run don't do much, but Hurricane Brooklyn whips through the house with the goal of playing defense and making hers hard to find, so she tears apart the bedrooms. Quinn instantly finds Brooklyn's memory card on the next turn. Then Cam finds Quinn's memory card in the mess Brooklyn made, and Tucker finds Mackenzie's in a plant.
I was really good at Easter egg hunts.
Brooklyn takes some revenge on her enemy's things, flinging Tucker's shirts and T-Core's crochet, and finds a memory card. After a few rounds, Cam finds the final memory card, and we get to the results. Host Chelsea reveals the results with players eliminated being Brooklyn, Quinn, Mackenzie, and Cam. It all comes down to Joseph and Tucker, which is humorous because Joseph barely tried to hide his or look. In the end, Tucker's card was never found and he wins his third veto in a row. Afterwards, the house guests are treated to a mess they have to clean, which can be triggering, but organizer Marie Kondo finds that dumping all your clothes out is the first step to decluttering and finding joy. Tucker is pissed that all of his clothes are messed up and instantly blames Quinn for it. In the kitchen, Tucker confronts Quinn and tells him basically that he's coming for that ass. Later, Brooklyn tells Chelsea that she was the one who really messed with Tucker's clothes and she's relishing in the trouble she's caused. Quinn decides the best policy is to be honest with Tucker about everything, telling Tucker that he spilled the beans to Brooklyn about the pawn situation, about the collective, and the Pentagon, but he says he did not touch Tucker's clothes. So we head to the veto meeting, which starts with Tucker warning them to batten down the hatches because they're about to feel real uncomfortable, just what anyone wants to hear. He announces that he knows all about the collective and the Pentagon, and that he was the target last week. He says that Brooklyn and Chelsea were in charge of the Pentagon, and for that reason, he uses the veto on Quinn and replaces Quinn with Chelsea. And the episode ends with Quinn telling us he's going back to his lying lifestyle, and the second he gets a chance, he's getting Tucker out of the game. Moving on to Thursday's episode, where our Commander-in-Chief Julie is wearing a simple white blazer with a demure floral top. On social media, she teased the return of her bob, but with Brooklyn likely going home, maybe she felt it in poor taste. But I never knew her glam team to have taste. Julie points out that Tucker has 6 comp wins so far, and he's wreaking havoc on the game, which sends us back to the house for fallout from the veto meeting, where Chelsea calls out Quinn and Joseph for ratting them out to Tucker. Tucker says nobody told him anything when actually, why yes, it was Joseph and Quinn telling Tucker everything. Tucker's still calling things out left and right, but nothing he says is really exposing anything that everyone doesn't already know. Later, Tucker meets with Cam, telling Cam that he's still the pawn. Cam says he hopes that him being on the block proves his loyalty. How? Chelsea confronts Quinn in private, and he tells her that he didn't tell Tucker about the Pentagon. He told Chemo and T-Core, and they told Tucker. She's pissed, but also he did tell Tucker about the alliance, so she should be pissed. In the flower room, Brooklyn and Tucker have a tense conversation where he's calling her out and she's lying to him, saying that the collective only met one time and that she was told to vote for Rubina by the house. All lies, they met multiple times and nominating Rubina was all her idea. Brooklyn says she's coming for Tucker's ass with every chance she gets. The nominees start campaigning, with Chelsea telling potential voters that her targets are going to be Quinn and Joseph for turning on her. Tucker starts hanging out with Cam, Leah, and Mackenzie, which is starting to bother members of the 5 Points Alliance. T-Core and Rubina agree that Chelsea would be better for their game to keep than Cam. T-Core especially leads this strategy for the potential vote flip to keep Chelsea if she's on the block with Cam, and she works to bring Chemo and Quinn in on the plan as well. Wednesday night, in bed in the HOH room, Rubina fills Tucker in on the plan to flip the vote, and he's frustrated about it in the diary room. Not shown on TV, but Tubina also really took advantage of that HOH room. Back to Thursday, we get the AI arena comp called Digital Description. Of course, Ainsley's AI image generator is malfunctioning. This girl must be on something, I swear. Jumbled words will come across the screen spelling out images they need to sort out. This is all really complicated. If I were competing, I think I would get so much anxiety, I would pass out by natural causes right on the spot. They get started, and this is chaotic. None of them seem to know what they're doing, and the words get easier and easier as the game goes on. They're all clearly not understanding what to do, until eventually the unscrambled words are slowly moving across the screen. In the end, Chelsea wins the competition, and it's not looking good for Brooklyn. Julie reveals to the houseguests that Chelsea won the arena, and they cheer. Brooklyn instantly starts begging to T-Core and Chemo to keep her, and then openly pleads to the whole house to keep her so she can target Tucker and go up on the block every week if that's the case. It becomes a really tense moment between Brooklyn and Tucker. They get to the speeches, Cams is politely asking to stay, and Brooklyn says she's public enemy number 1 and proclaims again that she's coming for Tucker's ass. We get to the votes and we see Chelsea vote to evict Cam. Votes for Brooklyn are Leah, Quinn, Mackenzie, Rubina, Chemo, T-Core, Angela, and Joseph. So by a vote of 8-1, Brooklyn is evicted. She leaves on a good note, hugging everyone, including Tucker. Her interview with Julie is pleasant and professional. Julie asks her if it would surprise her that Quinn ratted out the Pentagon. To whoever writes Julie's little note cards, that is a stupid question. The interview wraps up with a funny message from Angela.
And you shouldn't have eaten my charcuterie board stuff.
So we say goodbye to Brooklyn here, who coming into this had a specific mission to do it for the married mothers and planned to work with the showmans, none of which she really did, as she went pretty all in on the Pentagon alliance, and week 3 I had her number 1 in my player rankings. The Pentagon's biggest mistake was trusting Quinn, as that ended up being their downfall and resulted in the Cedric vote blindside. She was completely behind Rubina being on the block and was willing to throw Rubina in front of the bus to manipulate Tucker. That was a bit of overplaying, but she spends the majority of this week backtracking and trying to lie about the past instead of trying to save herself and talk about the future. She did pick things up in a positive direction around Monday, where I think her thoughts started becoming coherent. Her best arguments came after the AI arena, and if she would have campaigned like that all week, I think they would have kept her. That would have been dumb though, because as I said last week, the other players would be dumb to let her get to the end game, and maybe they're not as dumb as they seem. It's a shame for her to be a pre-juror because she has such a powerful energy and a huge story with her being a former Miss America, something that's such a big deal and was barely mentioned on the show. I don't think she lived up to her potential here, and I hope we see her again because I think she clears on an all-star season, and she and her husband would be really interesting on The Amazing Race. So that wraps up my recap for this week. Let me know in the comments, what did you think of Tucker as HOH and Brooklyn as a house guest in general? I'll be back later tonight with my updated week 5 player rankings. If you like the videos, consider liking and subscribing. After that, I'll be back on Wednesday to cover the Challenge 40 and Thursday with Big Brother 26. Until next time, don't touch my charcuterie stuff.